Hey guys, welcome to the Go Find Nervous show. I want to make a quick intro. This episode I just did with Ash Mackinnon is a very important episode. He's doing a lot of good work for cancer. I want to let you know the audio is a little bit difficult in this show, but hang in there. His audio is not that bad. We had some technical difficulties. It's 100% worth it, and he has some really good information that people need to hear. So welcome and enjoy this episode of the Go Find Nervous show. Welcome to the Go Find Nervous show. I'm your host, Jake Bolig. This is the show where we find out at least 3 experiences that made our guests nervous on their journey to success and how they overcame it. Before I introduce our guest, which I'm really excited about our guest today, I want to tell you, if you want a free copy of the booklet that started it all, the Go Find Nervous booklet, look in the description, and it's going to give you a link to a free copy of this and some other stuff. Just want to share that with you real quick. Now, let me tell you a little bit about our guest today. He's the president of Australia's first cancer charity, funding life-saving robotic cancer equipment, CyberKnife, saving lives today as well as into the future. And I wanted to read that direct so I didn't mess it up. And he's the author of a book that's close to my heart because it's from my home state, author of a book called Dying to Get to Oklahoma. Ash Mackinnon is with us today. Ash, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Jake. Pleasure to be here.
I appreciate it, man. Let's just jump right into the story. You know, you have this charity. There's obviously a background story. And for the listener, give us a little bit of the background. How did you get to Oklahoma? You're from Australia. Tell me actually first where you're at in Australia, and then how did you get to Oklahoma?
Well, Jake, we were living in Melbourne in Australia, and my wife was diagnosed on Valentine's Day, of all things, with breast cancer. So she went through all the normal treatments and so forth. Made us re-evaluate where we were at. We had 2 young kids. So we moved up to the Great Barrier Reef to live on an island called Hamilton Island. And they had a small school there, so the kids went to school. And when we were up there, my wife had a seizure, and she was airlifted to the local hospital, and they found that she had 9 brain tumours. So the doctors basically said, that's it. And, you know, she wasn't even 40 yet. She was in her 30s, 2 young kids. And to get that was just a shock. It was like, there's nothing we can do. And then we did some research. And initially we found a place they were in San Diego, and we had a friend in San Diego, had a device called a gamma knife. We didn't have it in Australia. So she went over there and had 1 day of treatment with this machine in the hospital, and came back to Australia after the 1 day of treatment, went back to work. There's no side effects. She was able to go back to work.
Wow.
She had to have continual scans, and 5 of them had been eradicated, but 4 still remained. One of them had actually grown, so we thought we could go back to access this gamma knife, but where one was, they couldn't use it anymore. So we did some more research, and we had a doctor from Oklahoma that saw our story, and he contacted us, and he said he had a similar device called the CyberKnife, and this can treat cancers of the whole body. It's a robotic arm, so it can access the cancers from 360 degrees for the comfort of the person. So again, we went over there. This was very expensive because you have to pay up front, the airfares, the accommodation, so forth. Yeah. We didn't have time to get a loan, so we put it all on our credit card. They were able to extend our credit card. So again, she went over to Oklahoma, which is, for Australians, it's the size of Brisbane, and they had the CyberKnife, they had the gamma knife, they had brachytherapy. The staff were just wonderful. And yeah, she had the treatment for the 4 remaining tumours over there. And when we came back, we said, you know, this was unbelievable that we don't have this technology in Australia. It had been around for 20 years by the time we found out about it.
Wow.
And, you know, it was 1 day of non-invasive treatment with no surgery, no drugs, no side effects. And she was able to come back to Australia, continue work, you know, maintain the family. I think the thing was, we got a lot of media in Australia, and we were repeating the story over and over. It's got a bit tiresome.
Sure.
So that was where the book came about, that we thought, well, one, it tells our story so
Right.
that people have an understanding. It cost us a lot of money to go overseas, so it helped with that financial aspect.
Mm-hmm.
But it also helped me with dealing with the health ministers in the government over here to get that treatment to Australia, and also to help cancer patients who could read it. And before we got it to Australia, people were going to places like America or Malaysia had it. A lot of countries in Europe, there's some people went over there because they had family for support. So it was
Mm-hmm.
helping people access this treatment prior to us getting it in Australia.
And once again, for people listening, Ash Mackinnon, the author of Dying to Get to Oklahoma. So many questions I have here. I know we're not going to have enough time for this, but so when was this exactly what year was this when this treatment happened? When the doctor in Australia said it's over, and you said, no, it's not over. It's not over until we exhaust all efforts. And then you went on the hunt and then you found out. So what year was that?
The first time when she went to San Diego was 2004. And when we got back from that, the media got on board, and we actually did a presentation up on Hamilton Island for it's called Good Morning Australia. So that went right around Australia, and that enabled us to petition. When you mention have a charity, it's a charity that doesn't accept donations. So we just look for support. We petition government, and then we get as many names as possible onto these petitions for the government, and that hopefully forces some change. So we did that. We've got 3 centres now with the gamma knife in Australia. We had none at the time.
Right.
And we've got 2 centres with the cyber knife. They're both in Perth, which is on Western Australia. And Australia's a big country, so people can access it, but it's difficult. It takes a long plane trip, and it'd be better if we had one in each state and territory in Australia.
Yeah, I can imagine that. So you have people. I love this idea of the charity. You're not really looking for money. You're looking for people to be like, yes, this is a great idea. Government, hey, let's invest in this because it can improve people's lives. I love that. It's a different way to call it a charity, right? Yeah. But so how many do you actually need? Like, how do you see that playing out? How many do you forecast that Australia needs?
We're looking at 7 minimum. But so as I said, Perth has 2 now. There's one that was due to open in 2013 in Melbourne, but they had a change of government after it was all planned. It's still in the plans for the centre. It's a cancer hospital, but it's just never been installed. So we're still working on that one. And then I approached, you mentioned about the money, so I thought I'll approach a number of high-profile Australians with a lot of money. And one was Gina Reinhardt, who's Australia's richest woman, and she was really interested in getting one in Darwin, which is the top end with the crocodiles and whatever. So she was looking at it from a medical tourism point of view. It's been announced in the media, but again, it just hasn't been finished as yet. So this was a hospital that was going to have advanced scanning techniques to pick up cancers before or earlier to get a higher success rate.
Right.
And it was going to have a gamma knife, a cyber knife, and a Da Vinci, which is a surgical robot, and they use a lot in prostate cancer and things like that. So it's going to be a top hospital in Australia, but Sydney hasn't. Yeah, we're trying to get one in Sydney. You'd think the biggest city in the country would have that type of technology. And then we've got Brisbane in Queensland, and then we've got Tasmania, which is a small state, but again, that's a separate island, so it would ideally have its own centre, and then one in South Australia in Adelaide.
So now, I think I remember from talking the other day during our conversation, it wasn't immediate when you first got the first machine over. It took some time between you going to San Diego and actually getting the first machine in Australia. How long did that take, and what was that process like?
Well, it took years. It was a slow process, and again, did a number of media programs like yours, and got a lot of exposure in the media, both on TV, radio, and the written media. But unfortunately, it's such a slow process, and we had a couple of politicians that brought it up in Parliament to try and hurry it along, and then the government changed, and then new people come in. You've got to basically start from scratch, which is just so frustrating.
Yeah.
And as far as the other cancer charities, they all have there's so many cancer charities. That's where the dollar, they're all crying out for your charity dollar. So we decided not to go down that avenue. And a couple of those have been assisting us with, exposure and raising awareness of the, because people are going to their doctors, after they've been diagnosed with cancer, they've seen our story and they say, what about this side? And we're happy to go to Perth. And the doctors, because we don't promote it over here, don't really have an understanding of it. So they can do everything via email now, which is great. So they can send their scans over to Perth. The doctors can have a look at it. And then if they're a suitable candidate for it, they can organise the flight. Generally, it's only 1 day accommodation because you have 1 day of treatment and you go home the next day. So they might stay overnight in Perth, but it's a lot harder than if you're in Sydney and you could just get in a car and drive to the local hospital for it.
Right.
You go to the airport, go across the country to access it. So we're just trying to make it a lot more convenient for people in that hard time of their life.
Yeah, that's very commendable, and I think I remember you saying something that there's a wait time on this stuff it's getting out there pretty far, or wait time to use the equipment, or is that accurate?
Yeah, well, I still get probably 1 or 2 queries a week from people saying, well, we've heard your story, and some people are still willing to go overseas because it's actually quicker to get in to a hospital overseas than it is in Perth because they've got a 7-month wait.
7 months, that's what it was. That's the number. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's just so, because there's it's non-invasive. It's
Wow.
a lot of people that have inoperable cancers near the spine, near the brain, that sort of thing. This can treat it because they actually use the technology from the space shuttle. So if you imagine how accurate they've got to be with that, this is sub-millimetre accuracy. So they do the scan, feed that into a computer, and that detects the exact dimensions of the tumour, and then this machine, using the robotic arm, shoots these beams into it to kill the cancer, but without harming surrounding healthy tissue, which is just fantastic.
That's unbelievable. Oh, it's believable because it happened. It's real. It's a real technology. It's believable. So
Exactly.
that's so interesting. So this technology will go in. It does not harm any of the other healthy tissue. Is that what you said?
No.
That is incredible.
Certain parts within the body for men, using it for prostate. The prostate's in and around a lot of other organs. So what they do there, they dial it back a bit, and they do that over 5 days. So they can still do the same thing, trying to minimise the impact on the surrounding organs. But for brain tumours, it's they're there. You know the exact dimensions of it. So this thing can just go in and get it. When we were in Oklahoma, there was a gentleman there who had a cancer behind his eye. I said, how does that work? He said, I just lay there and these beams, there's no sedation, and the beams go in individually. There's about 230 of them, I think, and they just get shot into the eye to the target behind the eye, so you don't even feel it. And when they all join up, they just join up at the tumour and basically fry it. So, without harming the eye or any. And a lot of people, that smoke get, potentially a cancer of the esophagus, that sort of thing, near the voice box. And if they operate, sometimes that then damages the voice box, and they've got that little device that helps them talk with the vibration.
Right.
But this machine can actually do that without that impact to the voice box. So, and the first person that had the treatment in Australia was a lung cancer patient. And because it's a robotic arm, it moves with the patient breathing. So they were laying on the table, and as the patient breathed, the arm that was delivering the doses moved to target the cancer and not harm
So
a healthy
it's
lung.
ecstatic. It's like it
Yeah,
goes up and down with the wave of the
yeah.
body. That is so interesting, man.
So, we knew none of this in 2004. So it's a
Right.
really fast learning curve. And you have to act really quickly because, cancers are can be so aggressive. So it was a matter of,
Sure.
find out this. Things are changing. There's a lot of options now in Australia, but again, you've got to travel so far to access them, which is a bit disappointing. And
Yeah, I can imagine the seventh month. If you get the diagnosis and then somebody says, okay, we know what it is. It's going to take you 7 months, though. That has to
yeah,
be the longest 7 months of it.
7 months.
I mean, it has to feel like eternity, right? So,
Well, a lot can't wait, so they've got to look at other options, which we don't really have a great
right,
amount of. So, and
right.
that's some have gone overseas as a result of that because they can access it quicker overseas. But, yeah,
So tell me about the book a little bit. So you decided to write the book. Obviously, you're in the media in Australia. People are reaching out to you, hey, asking you questions. I'm sure you're catching emails every day, and I'm sure you'll get some more off of this because it's this really interesting stuff. And any time that I can help share this type of information to anybody that might just have questions, I mean, it's really fascinating that I'm able to help do this in any small way. Tell me about the book. As an author, was this your first book? You decided to write it? Did you team up with somebody, or did you just sit down at the desk and just start ripping it out?
yeah, definitely. My background is not writing. I actually left school in year 10 over here, so I got into teaching later on. So I went to university
Okay.
when I was in my 20s, but yeah, someone suggested this, and I thought, gee, where do you even start? So
Right.
it was. I just started jotting the stories down, and some of them are in relation to, your programs about nervousness, and when you're in a family with kids and someone's diagnosed with cancer, it's just the feeling of awe that comes across you, and get that first doctor's appointment and so forth. So
Right.
jotting down things like that, but also the positive side of things. So a friend of ours met Oprah years ago, and then when Oprah came to Australia, she went to a house in Australia. So I used that story as a goal setting type, um,
Wow.
you know, opportunity. So
Yeah.
that was one of the stories I put in there, not related to the cancer, but related to the determination that someone can have, and that's her determination was to meet Oprah because she was inspirational to her. And my determination was to get this treatment to Australia. So the same goal, if you like, was
Right.
there. And
Right.
the book played a part of that. We met Patrick Swayze in Los Angeles when we were over in San Diego.
Yeah.
It was the anniversary of Dirty Dancing, and he and his wife were attending, and we yelled out we were from Australia, and he came over and had a chat, and he had
Oh,
the
that's
same
lovely.
treat. He had the same treatment, the cyberknife, for his cancer later on. Again, one of the things I'm trying to do was that we found out about this towards the end, after everything else was exhausted. So we're trying to bring it to the attention that if you get this initially, there's less impact on the body than a lot of other traditional treatments. So if you're a candidate, try and get this first to fix the problem without going through all that other, chemicals with the side effects and so forth. So
Yeah.
it's a story of our, the trips overseas. When Leah went to San Diego, we couldn't afford for both of us to go. And we had a friend that lived over there, but when she got off on the train from LA to get to San Diego, she met a 80-year-old woman on the train, Jean, and they struck up a conversation. And Jean couldn't believe she'd never been to the movies on her own and stuff. And here was a woman going to the other side of the world on her own for cancer treatment.
Oh,
So
wow.
she said, "Come and stay with me." So she took Leah in to a house in San Diego and drove her to her appointments and did all of that
What?
sort of
That's
stuff.
wild. That's so
Yeah, and then
sweet. Yeah. Yeah.
she
Yeah.
was on her own. She'd lost her husband. So we said, if you ever, come to Australia, come and visit us. And she did. She came to Australia, and, as I said, she'd never sort of left San Diego
Right.
region, and she flew all the way to and stayed with us on Hamilton Island, and she went into the Red Centre to have a look at, the outback and the whole thing. So, I think she got a bit of strength out of Leah's story as well. So it was quite, and then also for the kids to be able to meet her and say thank you for what she did for their mum was, an inspirational thing as well. So,
Yeah.
and then, going to Oklahoma from Australia, it took, about 30 hours of flying. I went with her to Oklahoma, and we couldn't believe, we knew nothing of Oklahoma and, the cowboy history and the whole thing, we just lapped all of that up, but we just couldn't believe that this city had so much cancer, facilities that people could access. It was, so we brought that back and used that with a lot of leverage, because it was, smaller. Oklahoma City, smaller than Sydney and Melbourne.
Sure.
And they had, several options in the one hospital. So, we're really impressed by that.
Right. So you said this smaller town. Why does this smaller town have more accessibility than us in this bigger town? I mean,
exactly. And you went into the hospital, and there was, in Melbourne, sometimes I couldn't even go to the hospitals, or in, different places we lived at. It can be quite upsetting to go in, because there's a lot of people aren't going to make it.
Right.
And when we were in Oklahoma, there was this sense of optimism in the waiting rooms. There was, people there. They said, we've got this machine. Friends of ours had it. They came in. They had 45 minutes of treatment and never had cancer again. And some people that came back, and they could go back and have this treatment again, because it doesn't affect the other parts of the body. They can do it, several times, whereas a lot of other treatments wears the body down. So there's a limit to how much you can have. So there's a sense of optimism in the, the waiting rooms, the cafeterias, even with the staff. The staff were quite buoyant, because they knew there was hope. And,
they had something that worked.
Yeah. And they were,
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's fantastic. And to have that hope, and I know it makes me a little bit proud of being from Oklahoma, that the people are like that. And that's what I tell people when I say I'm from Oklahoma, and they say, what is it? Tell me about it. I say, I'll tell you what, the people are nice. You can't beat the people there. You can't beat them. So
sensational. Yeah.
So how do people, we got about a minute left here, Ash. We could talk all day, but how can people get a copy of your book, Dying to Get to Oklahoma?
It's available as an ebook through Amazon. So you can just Google Dying to Get to Amazon, Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. No, I didn't get to the Amazon yet.
What state am I at? It's available as a paperback as well. So again, Barnes and Noble, Walmart actually have it in America. I'm not sure if every store, but again, you can just Google Dying to Get to Oklahoma, and it will take you to the sites where you can get it as an ebook. I'm trying also to get it done as an audio book, but that's something that's coming up in the future, hopefully.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, audiobook it'd be great. Yeah. I love doing audiobooks. So yeah. If I can help in any way, let me know. I'll put a link in the description too for the people listening to link to Dying to Get to Oklahoma, just to make it easy for you guys listening as well. So.
Thanks,
Ash, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for being here. I'd love to have you on anytime and help any way I possibly can. So thank you so much for what you're doing and the energy and the love that you're putting out to the world, man. I can feel it all the way over here on the other side of the world. So thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for your help.
Cheers. Hey, one last thing before you go, leave a comment. Which example did you most align with from today's show? I'm curious. I want to know. Also, if there's somebody that you want to find out what's made them nervous, leave their name in the comment. I'll try to get them on the show. Follow me on social media at Jake Bolig. Follow the show at Go Find Nervous. And if you don't mind, subscribe. It helps me out the whole algorithm thing. I appreciate it. I'll see you next time. Go Find Nervous.